Okay, folks, let's get the show on the road here. I call to order this meeting of the Champaign County Board. It's Thursday, July 22nd, 2010. The time is 7:02. Roll call, please.
Rosales.
Mr. Rosales?
Yes. Sapp. Here. Schrader.
Here.
Smucker.
Here.
Wysocki.
Here.
Ammons.
Present.
Anderson.
Here.
Beckett.
Here.
Benzel. Betts. Carter. Cowart. Denitz.
Here.
Gladney.
Present.
James.
Here.
Jay.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Knott. Kurtz.
Here.
Langenheim.
Here.
McGinty.
Here.
Michaels.
Here.
Mosier. Nudo.
Here.
O'Connor.
Here.
Richards.
Present.
And Weipel.
Here, we have a quorum. I'd like to point out that Mr. Carter is in the Champaign County Nursing Home, so he's not here. He's recovering from knee surgery. Ms. Cowart is out of town. Mr. Benzel's on vacation out of town. Mr. Betts is out of town on business. Mr. Knott's out of town, and Mr. Mosier is chasing fish in Minnesota. In lieu of a prayer tonight, I'd like to have a moment of silence for two former county board members who passed away recently. The first one is Mr. Dale Wolf from Homer, who was on the county board for 22 years, I believe in 1980s and 1970s and 80s and perhaps into the 90s. And also the other one is Vicki Stewart, who's I think had one term on the county board in the early 1990s. So please have a moment of silence for those two former board members. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to apologize to the audience. I believe that the U.S. flag should always be to the left of every other flag, so somebody moved the U.S. flag recently. Would the clerk read the notes of the meeting, please?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on July 22nd, 2010 at 7 o'clock p.m. in the Lyle Shields Meeting Room, Brookings Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Beckett, second by Ms. Wysocki. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Seek approval of the agenda and the addendum.
So moved.
Moved
Second.
by Mr. James, second by Mr. Rosales. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The date and time of our next regular meetings are on the first committee meeting of the whole is Tuesday, October 3rd. Tuesday, August 3rd. And the second one is Tuesday, August 10th, both at 6 p.m. in this room. And our regular county board meeting is Thursday, August 19th at 7 p.m. also in this room. Public participation. Leslie Kimball.
Hi, I just wanted to come. I'm representing Dobbins Downs tonight, and you guys will be discussing the lease for Dobbins Downs to build a playground and signing potentially a permission to build. And I just want to thank you for allowing us to be here tonight and to present, and wanted to let you know we have our attorney present here if you have further questions. And I just thank you for all the work that you've done, Deb, over the last 4 weeks. We've been working like madmen with Kaboom, which is a nonprofit organization that helps communities like this build playgrounds. And we are very grateful that they contacted us through United Way. And Deb and some of the county board members have been very gracious to attend some just hearings, at least like conference calls with Kaboom, and working very feverishly with our attorney and the county attorney to work on this lease. And I just wanted to personally thank you for taking the time to consider this tonight. Thanks.
Ms. Jennifer Putman.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm privileged to be a former county board colleague of Dale Wolf, and privileged to be a former county board colleague of Ms. Vicki Stewart. And I came here for some help tonight because I'm missing my friend Vicki. I got behind on the newspapers and didn't read the Life Remembered feature in the News Gazette that was published last week. But then in the Saturday wrap-up quotes of the week, I read Mr. Lawrence's tribute to her. And I thought, oh my God, it's Vicki. And I wasn't ready to say goodbye to Vicki. We served, it wasn't just two. It was at least 2 terms, Pius, because if you go to the wall of photos, I think you'll see 3 photographs of Vicki, which would equate to probably 2 full terms.
More than
But
one.
she was just a wonderful friend of mine. And our friendship dispels the notion, the popular wisdom, that Democrats and Republicans on the Champaign County Board just can't get along well. We got along well. I don't want you to think that she wasn't a Republican and that I'm not a Democrat, because I'm a big D one of those and she was a big R one of those. We were allies on a number of challenging issues. The fight over whether or not lesbian and gay county workers would have workplace protections went on and on and on and on. And that Republican and this Democrat were on the same side of that issue. But there were things where, well, in years divisible by 2, when Rick Winkle and Laurel Pressing were both going to be on the ballot, I knew not to talk about that with my friend Vicki. And we spoke when she would drive me from work, where she sometimes did work on contract for my employer. She would bring me from work to here, from here to home. We had a rich, full friendship. And this past year, when I've taken a part-time job with Smile Healthy, the dental program that you have helped to support through county grants, and as the Rantoul Village Board has supported also, thank you. My office in the Lincoln Building was just across the street, just across Market Street from where Vicki worked. And I could see her getting out of her vehicle, no matter the weather, no matter how wretched, how slushy, how cold, coming to work every day to do the job that she loved, serving people. And the obituary, the Life Remembered feature in the newspaper mentioned her fashion sense, dressed to the nines, was, as Mr. Lawrence remembered. I remember also that Vicki had a flair with the cigarettes, and she smoked an elegant, long one, and it had a holder. And my friend Tom Betts was doing his best to become a former smoker, but there would be a break time. And this is when we were meeting in the annex, and that's where people went for their smoke breaks. And I know Tom would try to get so he could just be close enough to get a whiff of those intoxicating, fragrant, I don't know what they were that she smoked, but she did it with flair, and she was just a wonderful, wonderful friend, and it was just my privilege to have served with her on this county board. And my dear friend, Dale Wolf, one of the last lines in the News Gazette obituary stated, "He didn't know a stranger." Isn't that the truth? This man was a friend to all. He loved being mayor of Homer. He loved serving on this county board. It was my good fortune to go with him to several NACO meetings. This is a person who loved NACO, loved UCCI. He paid his own way on more than one occasion. And he would get to the exhibit hall, and I think it was hard to get him out of the exhibit hall to go to the different sections. But this is a man who loved life, loved people, and it was just been my privilege to get to know those individuals through my service on the county board. I've got a couple of pictures I wanted to pass around Dale Wolf isn't in all those pictures, that he would have been eligible to be. So I want to remind you, when it's picture day, go be in the picture. It might be after an election, but you need to be in the picture when Ms. Busey reminds you that it's photo day. Because I'm sorry that Dale is missing from some of those. I'm missing from one because I was having a hissy fit. I was so mad at Rick Winkle. It was right after we went to the contract form of having the public defender, and this is something he had championed. And I'd be darned if I was going to pose in a picture with Rick Winkle after that. And now I'm mad at myself because I missed the chance to be in one of those pictures. And he went on to be a state representative after he rearranged the public defender form. But anyhow, we've gone back to the good old way. But when you get a chance to have your picture taken, you be there when Deb says. Some of you gentlemen and ladies won't recognize all the people in there, except for Dale. They're all still living, but you might not recognize some of those individuals. Those are taken at a NACO meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Let's skip the community. Let's go on to approve the minutes first.
Move approval of the minutes of June 24, 2010.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Beck. Second by Mr. Rosales. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Okay, going back to the communications letter of support, that actually should have been on the agenda as an action item. This was a letter that was, again, sort of given to me. It says you must sign this before a certain date for the ECI, East Central Illinois, I forgot the Economic Development District. So it's one of those cases. I'll sign it and we'll bring it to the board. So I would ask a motion to support this letter. Moved by Ms. Wasaki. Second by Mr. Richards. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for that. I apologize it was not in the agenda properly. Okay. Standing committee reports. Finance. Mr. McGinty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First item, I recommend adoption of resolution number 7415, purchases not following purchasing policy, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. Beckett. Discussion. See none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I recommend adoption of resolution number 7416, payment of claims authorization, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. Beckett. Discussion. See none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I recommend adoption of resolution number 7417, an emergency budget amendment for $45,000. This is insurance payment for 2004 International truck that was totaled in the fire, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Ms. Amons. Discussion? Roll call. We have 19, Mr. Beckett. Right, I think so.
Rosales,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Smucker,
Yes.
Wysocki,
Yes.
Ammons, Anderson,
Yes.
Beckett,
Yes.
Denitz,
Yes.
Gladney,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Langenheim,
Yes.
McGinty,
Yes.
Michaels,
Yes.
Nudo,
Yes.
O'Connor,
Yes.
Richards,
Yes.
and Weibel.
Yes, motion carries.
Fourth item, I recommend adoption of resolution number 7418 for $1,538 to cover personnel expenditures for fiscal year 2010, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rosales. Discussion? See none, roll call.
Rosales,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Smucker,
Yes.
Wysocki,
Yes.
Ammons,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Beckett,
Yes.
Denitz,
Yes.
Gladney,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Langenheim,
Yes.
McGinty,
Yes.
Michaels,
Yes.
Nudo,
Yes.
O'Connor,
Yes.
Richards,
Yes.
and Weibel.
Yes, motion carries.
I recommend adoption of resolution number 7427, approving the collective bargaining agreement between the Champaign County Board General Unit employees and AFSCME Council 31, Local 900A, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Kurtz. Discussion? See none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
From the addendum, item number 6, I recommend adoption of resolution number 7428, emergency budget amendment for $58,957. This is reimbursement for repair of the highway truck and reimbursement cleanup of the highway building in 2 different cases, and I so move.
Second by Mr. J. Discussion. See none, all in favor, roll call.
Rosales?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Smucker?
Yes.
Wysocki?
Yes.
Ammons?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Beckett?
Yes.
Denitz?
Yes.
Gladney?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Langenheim?
Yep.
McGinty?
Yes.
Michaels?
Yes.
Nudo?
Yep.
O'Connor?
Yes.
Richards?
Yes.
Weibel?
Yes, motion carries.
And finally, I recommend adoption of resolution number 7429, an emergency budget transfer for $79,666. These are adjustments to line items necessary to cover expenditures for county FY 2010, and I so move.
Second by Ms. Wysocki. Discussion. Ms. Ammons.
I'm reading on the page 5 here. It doesn't tell us why it's an emergency. Are these new positions or something that was not budgeted in the 2010 budget?
The only reason it's an emergency is because you didn't have a committee meeting this month, so everything that comes directly to the board is called an emergency. But it's just a standard budget transfer, moving money within the budget.
Further discussion. Seeing none, roll call.
Rosales?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Smucker?
Yes.
Wysocki?
Yes.
Ammons?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Beckett?
Yes.
Denitz?
Yes.
Gladney?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Jones? Knott? Kurtz?
Yes.
Langenheim? McGinty?
Yes.
Michaels?
Yes.
Nudo?
Yes.
O'Connor?
Yes.
Richards?
Yes.
Weibel?
Yes, motion carries.
It's all from finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGinty. Policy personnel and appointments, before we proceed with this, since we did not have a policy meeting, and Mr. Beckett, as vice chair, is not here, we have 2 options to do here, and I'm going to suggest we do the second one. The first one is we could temporarily appoint a vice chair, so I can step down and make the appointments from the floor. In order for me to voice who my selection is, that's an opinion, so therefore I can't do it from here. Or we can suspend the rules so I can voice an opinion from here as chair. The nomination will still come from the floor.
I move we suspend the rules.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Beckett, second by Mr. McGinty. Discussion. See none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Ammons.
Mr. Chair, policy personnel appointment moves adoption of resolution 7419, asking for your appointment for that position.
My selection is Mr. David Thies.
Is there a motion to support that selection?
Second.
Second, actually, Ms. Ammons, you can move that yourself.
I can move it.
Moved by Ms. Ammons,
Sorry.
second by Mr. Beckett. Discussion. A couple of comments here. I selected Mr. Thies. For one thing, he's got a background in county government. He was on the county board back in, I think, 88 to 92. So he has some experience dealing with county entities. He also has done a lot of work with contracts, and since the Board of Health does a lot of the work through a contractual agreement with the CUPHD, I think he'd be a valuable member on this board. He's also been in the community for quite a while. He's got a lot of experience dealing with many of the medical facilities in town, so I think he'd be very useful to the county board at this time. Mr. Schreiber certainly has a strong interest in certain aspects of the public health. However, he seemed to be focused on only one area. That area was environmental health, and I think at this time Mr. Thies would be a better choice for that board. Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
We move adoption of resolution 7420, appointing Elaine.
Actually, my choice is Elaine. Let me give you my choices, and you can just move them, okay? My choices for 2, 3, and 4 are Elaine Holhauser, David Hudson, and Thomas Zinders appropriately. You may move those now individually.
Moving them, and moving 7420, appointing Ms. Elaine Hauser as the choice.
Second by Mr. Beckett. Discussion. See none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Moving adoption 7421, appointing David Hudson to the Dewey Community Public Water District Board.
Second.
Second by Mr. Beckett. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Adoption of resolution is 7422, appointing Thomas Zenders to the Dewey Community Public Water District Board.
Second.
Second by Mr. Beckett. Discussion. Ms. Wysocki.
Could it's rather strange, isn't it, that we have one board with 3 vacancies? Is there, pardon the pun, something in the water in Dewey?
One's a reappointment, I think the other, I can't recall, actually. I can look that up, though. I
And
forgot.
it's just a point of curiosity.
Yeah, I remember reading about that, now I can't remember.
Is that the whole board?
No, I think it's a 5.
That's a 5-member board, I think.
It just struck me as odd as I read those 3 appointments that it's rather unusual to have 3 at the same time from one board.
I will look into that, though. Yes, get that information to you. Yeah, it's a little bit odd, the terms end at the same time.
Oh.
Okay, further discussion. Ms. Anderson.
Well, I'm just, since Barb brought that up, just kind of glancing down, I see that Elaine Holzhauser says beginning term 6/14/10, ending date 6/13/16, and then when I look at Zinder's, his doesn't say the year. So are they 3-year terms? Or
Actually, we have to go by what's on the resolution, Jan.
Pardon?
We have to go by what's on the resolution, not what's on the application form.
Okay, I'm looking at the applications.
Further discussion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Move adoption of resolution 7423, approving the appointment of election judges for the November 2010 election cycle.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. J, was it? Okay, discussion. Mr. Langenheim.
Looking at this thing, I find that I'm listed as a judge in Cunningham 10, and I'm a candidate, and I'm eligible to serve, and I did so inform the clerk. I'm wondering if this is a listing of people that are on his list, or are these the people that are going to be actually serving?
It's provided by the party chair. Mr. Beck, I think, could comment on that. He did have a
Well, first
discussion.
of all, it's a list of judges who have applied and previously applied. You've worked as an election judge in
I've
the
been an
past,
election judge many
so you're
times.
on his list. I'm on his list, too.
Yeah.
He will send out to us later an invitation
Yeah.
for us to step forward and be trained and serve. If you don't serve, you don't serve. And I also checked with the state's attorney just to make sure, because I saw your name was on the list, and my name was on the list, and my son's name's on the list, and Carol's husband's name is on the list.
Well, there's a precinct.
Nudo's on the list, all kinds of people on the list. It's no
Yeah. problem.
As a matter of fact, it's my understanding there's some people running for county board who would be voting on this as well, so.
So that means we can all vote. Further discussion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
We move adoption of resolution number 7424, approving addendum to the county administrator employment contract.
Second.
Second by Mr. James. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Approval, just say it, approval to release RFP for audit services. There's no resolution.
Second by Mr. Richards. Discussion. Mr. James.
On page 37 of the RFP, item number 2, I would like to know why we would exclude anybody.
The audit firm of Bray Drake Lyles has had this contract for the last 3 terms, which is 15 years. And this is up to you. It's being recommended to be presented this way. It is not unusual with audit services for any governmental entity or 501c3 to determine that they want to change their outside auditor just to get a new set of eyes and a fresh approach on their audit. if we put this in the contract, we are more likely to get a higher number of responses to this RFP. We did not put it in 5 years ago, and we received only one other response other than the response from Bray Drake. And the reason for that is all the other accounting firms would make the assumption that you'll probably stay with the current firm because they are most likely to provide the least expensive contract because they already are familiar with us and know all the ins and outs of doing our audit. There's always a learning curve when a new audit firm is brought in. So this is a customary thing to do with audit services RFPs, just to communicate with potential responders that they will be on an even playing field with all other responders if they choose to respond to this RFP.
Go ahead.
Well, I work for a not-for-profit agency now, and I've served on some other ones, and we have never, ever, to my knowledge, done that. I understand what you're saying, and I could concur with that, but also on the same token, there may be the response, like when I've gone out for quotes on different projects, whether it be an audit firm or what have you, that I don't get the responses I'm expecting, not because they were expecting someone to, but I don't like excluding somebody. I think that's unfair to do so in a case like this. If the other board members feel that it's the right thing to do, that's fine, but there may come a point in time that, we may need to have somebody's services. I know there's plenty of groups out there, but also the waters are being thinned out due to the economy, and I think that anybody should have the right to make a proposal. Whether or not it's accepted, that's up to this board.
Mr. Beckett.
I guess my reaction is that it looks better if you have a change in an auditing firm when you stop and think about the purpose of the auditing function. The purpose of the auditing function is to test and challenge existing practices against county, state, and federal policies and generally accepted accounting and auditing principles. I think it actually looks better. I bet you if you ask Carl Drake, he would recommend that we do this, even though it's against his own firm. And the other thing, remember, is it's an RFP. If we don't like the response, we can issue another RFP. We can change this one, and we can allow them to if we don't like the response that we get, because we're not bound to take anybody who responds to it.
Mr. Connor.
Thank you, Ken. I just think it would read better if we'd have said it. If we'd have said some of what Deb just said here in print and kind of explained ourselves a little bit. This one short pat statement leaves it open to look like we're kicking them in the teeth.
Well, I think we made public statements here that are on record saying that we're not doing that. Mr. James?
I was just listening to Mr. Beckett, and again, what he said is true, but what I said is they could still go ahead and do an RFP, and like he said, we don't have to accept them. I just feel like when you have an entity, and this thing about appearance, it only affects those of us that know the ins and outs and look at it. I would lay money, well, I better not say that. I would lay some sort of form of a wager that the general public isn't going to really worry who the audit firm is as long as the audit's done to the standards they're supposed to be. We could hire the next guy, and that ought to be the most terrible audit we've ever had, and then they'll be screaming. I'm just saying, level the playing field, be fair. If they request opt-out, they'll request opt-out, but that just looks bad. I mean, when you've done business, it's like any of us here. If as long as our constituents re-elect us, if we serve 20 years or 30, that's so be it. It doesn't mean we should go because we've been here 15 years. I just don't think it's right.
Mr. Richards.
We've used Bray Drake far longer than an average for a public body. We've had this conversation, Ms. Busey. How long is the normal length of time to use a firm like this for a body like this? 5 years before changing?
I mean, the contract term is 5 years, and they've been awarded the last 3 contracts. I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. I know that often, and maybe Mr. Fabry can, I know oftentimes, though, governmental entities and 501c3s will look for, a fresh audit firm.
Yeah, I could just say that this discussion came up at the recent conference of Illinois auditors, and different counties, of course, do it differently. Most of them have some restriction on not saying this particular firm can't apply, but saying that the previous firm, we need to rotate. Some of the counties, particularly up in the suburbs, will do annual contracts, and every year rotate. Now, with a one-year contract, that means if you don't do this year, well, you can always apply next year, and you're back in the business. But as a general rule, 3 to 5 years is considered just good practice for having an external auditor.
Then I would say maybe we need to look at how we word that and put that exclusion in our contract so everybody's on the same playing field and they know that, not just say you can't apply. You're excluding somebody.
Michaels?
I agree. That was my comment. It wasn't the fact that, I understand that it is good to have a change, but we've not set a precedence for what time frame. If we word them the last 3 times for 15 years, what's to say, okay, this one you can't? I think it's more of let everybody make their offer, and then we pick what is the best. We don't have to pick them. I think it's the wording in the way this is said. I agree with the gentleman over here.
So I guess I'm not quite sure what you want.
Well, I've never seen this either on anyone, and I've seen several contracts also asking for different audit for non-for-profits and 501c3s, and I've never seen anybody excluded because they'd done it for 15 years. And that's all I'm saying is I don't think we should exclude them. Now, whether you pick them or not is another thing, but I think the way this reads, it's like, oh, well, everybody but you is okay. That's...
Well, if you want to change it, we need a motion. Okay, Mr. James.
I would make a motion that we strike item 2 out of this RFP.
Okay, we have a motion to amend the RFP, removing paragraph number 2 on page 37. Is there a second? Ms. Michaels, discussion of the amendment. Okay, seeing none. All in favor of striking, all in favor of the amendment, which was to remove paragraph 2? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Motion fails. Back to the main motion. Discussion. Is this a regular vote? Right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, thank you, Ms. Amons. County Facilities, Mr. Beckett.
Thank you, Chair Weibel. I move adoption of resolution number 7425, approving a land lease with Dobbinstown Community Improvement Association, and I so move. And the lease that I am moving is found in this purple drafted packet, and it also includes language added to paragraph 9 that is on this yellow sheet. So the sentence that's on the yellow sheet would be part of the lease.
I think Mr. James seconded, correct? Discussion of the lease. Mr. Beck.
I did want to say, because Mr. J asked me, when we discussed this, we sort of wrestled with whether or not we could, quote, give the land away. I don't think we can give the land away. We would have to sell the land. I think there's some uncertainty about selling the land to a not-for-profit community organization. I saw this as a more expedient way because we have been in the practice of having land leases for various entities, and so that's why I recommended it when we had the discussion at the June meeting. And so I still support this. I think this is a good idea, and as the lady indicated from the community group, Chair Weibel and Ms. Busey and I did participate in a conference call with Kaboom, and this does appear to be a very viable solution to the problem, and I'm sure several of us have gone out to the neighborhood, which is crying out for a park. This is really a great thing. That all being said, Mr. J, I'm thinking that if this works out, there would be nothing to prevent the homeowners association from being formalized and us being convinced that it's there for good, and in the future deeding this property to them, so that we would obviate the need of having a lease. The lease would would pass to them with the title. But I think to get this thing going, I think this is the best way to do it.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion carries.
I move adoption of resolution number 7426, authorizing permission to build on property at 2603 Campbell Drive, Champaign, Illinois, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Kirsch. Discussion. This letter was required by Kaboom in order for them to start the process of building the park. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
From the addenda, item 3. Congratulations, community members. Thank you. I move adoption of resolution number 7430, approving a lease agreement between Champaign-Urbana Public Health District and the County of Champaign for the Children's Advocacy Center's premises, and I so move.
Second by Ms. Amons. Discussion. This is an annual lease. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
No opposed. Motion carries.
I have only one other thing I want to mention. Board members who weren't around after 9/11 probably don't recall or know about our Brookins planters, but we have Brookins planters, and the Brookins planters actually are a security device. And at the time, Joan Dykstra, who was on the board, thought they were the ugliest things that had ever been created to put outside of a building. And so we have filled them with flowers, and they've turned out to be very, very nice. But one of the ways that we cut money from the budget this year, from physical plant budget, was to not tend to them, to not maintain those plants. And instead, Ms. Busey asked Brookins employees whether or not they would be willing to volunteer to adopt a planter. And they did. Not only provided the labor, but they also provided the materials. And on behalf of the board, I'm sending a letter to each of the employees thanking them for their work this summer in beautifying the building. The employees I'm talking about are Lori Buzzboom, who's a zoning technician, Leanne Roback, the payroll manager, Kay Rhodes, of course, administrative assistant, Eleanor Morrow, microfilm services manager, Eleanor Ellis, a buyer, Debbie Chow, our insurance specialist, and Barb Doyle Little, chief deputy treasurer. And I've got copies of the letters that I'm sending to them. They actually have pictures of their planters, so you can see them. And I thank our employees for their good work. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Beckett. Any other business? We're adjourned.
Come and look at these planters. They're beautiful.
Yeah, well, 42 minutes.